Alright, good morning ladies and gentlemen, welcome back, and goodbye, because I didn't say anything, but I'm not saying anything at all today. Yep, that's about it. I guess I have to do a story video today. I didn't even do a story video yesterday. Oh well. Yeah, it is what it is, but I'll see you guys next time, right?
Alright. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back. Okay, so, yeah, this morning I didn't even speak at all. Because I think I was like half asleep. Also had nothing else to say. Yeah, nothing really else to say except we're just gonna do a little story video, right? I just want to do I just want to do a live stream at this point, but whatever. That's real talk for you. I just want to start doing a live stream. It'll be alright. Alright, lock in. This is gonna be at least like 10-minute plus video.
During the summer of 2011, I've been working for the U.S. Forest Service for coming up on 15 years, and for the past 4 summers, I'd spent my days as a fire lookout living in some box on a mountain. I'd look out for smoke, talk to myself or the radio, and learn how to be alone for such long periods without going completely insane. Now, people think it's romantic. While some parts can be nice, for the most part it's not. It's just really a job like any other. You get it after you paid your dues on trail crews or fighting fires or doing whatever kind of grunt work the higher-ups kind of throw at you. Now, I started in my late 20s after my marriage fell apart and I realized that I like trees better than I like most people, especially my dumb bitch ex. The service liked that I didn't complain about the isolation or the pack-outs, so they sent me to different towers over the years. But the one out in the Cascades that summer was my favorite. It had been a dream location of mine for years. I mean, all the lookouts are beautiful in their own little ways, I imagine, but this one out there had everything. Remote, quiet, and the kind of place where the world feels big, and you feel small, but in a good kind of way.
Okay.
And that season started out just like any other. I flew in by helicopter in late June with my first 2 weeks of supplies. And then after setting up the cabin,
I mean, this guy's straight up veteran. He's been doing it for like 10 plus years now. He's been doing it since he was 20. He's like probably 30, 40 now. He's like, yep, it's just another day, another dollar, right? Matter of fact, I didn't even think he's doing it for the money. He's just doing it as his life at this point. Chilling, alone in the wilderness, vibing. Yeah, sounds pretty chill to me. He knows what he's doing.
The firefinder and cleaned the windows and tested the radio for some peace of mind. Now, the tower sat on a rocky peak about 6,200 feet up, and my living quarters were right below the lookout room. There was a small kitchen, a surprisingly comfy bunk, and a propane fridge, and even a little bookshelf on which former lookouts had left books with little messages in them. And from up there you could see for literally miles. You could stand at the catwalk, seeing these giant ridges folding into valleys and where dark scars from last summer's forest fires were growing back green. I spent my days either scanning and plotting possible smokes or hiking down to the spring for water when the snowmelt slowed. Now, you'd hear the occasional bear or elk if you were lucky, and sunsets were incredible. And then nights were for reading some paperbacks and...
You know, that would sound so chill if you had like a video camera. Oh, man. That would be so chill when you have a video camera, like recording everything every day. Bro. One, you chillin'. My bandage fell off somewhere. One, you chillin'. Two, you be recording it the whole time. Probably get your channel big and like, yeah, that just sounds chill. A bunch of metadata. Bro, fire.
Writing or otherwise learning to be at peace with the sound of your own thoughts.
That's like me being in jail.
Now, it might sound funny seeing how similar each station really is, but my time in the Cascades was one of the best that I'd ever spent at a lookout. Now, it was everything I'd hoped for and more, but then I found the pit. It was mid-July and I'd taken a day off of the tower, something we're allowed now and then if the fire danger is pretty low. I'd hiked a few miles west along an old overgrown trail, looking for a spot that I'd heard about from a retired ranger that was supposed to have a good view for personal scouting. As I walked, the trail started to peter out into some brush, but I pushed through until the ground dropped away into a small depression, maybe 20 feet across. Now, at first I thought it was an old mine shaft or a root cellar that had collapsed in on itself after the cabin that had once stood above it had just been moved. And that's when I saw the bones. They were scattered in that shallow pit, like someone had tried to bury them and given up, and the first thing that grabbed my attention was the skull. It lay on its side with the jaw still attached, while the teeth were yellowed but also still intact, and they were clearly human teeth too, not the big canines of a bear or the flat grinders of some deer or moose. It had incisors, canines, premolars, all indications the skeleton had once belonged to a person. I'd also seen enough animal carcasses in the woods to know the difference. The eye sockets were round and forward-facing, the forehead high and smooth, and I wanted it to be an animal because the implications were so much more tame. But there was no lying to myself. And when it hit me that I was looking at a set of human remains, my stomach completely flipped. I'd done a lot of reading on this stuff in the years since for a ton of different reasons, but mostly because while I was never trained in forensics, I wanted to be sure. That's how I'm certain that the long bones present, things like femurs, tibias, and humeri, were all human and not those of some local animal. One of the femurs I spotted was broken, snapped clean about halfway down like it had taken some hard blow. The pelvis was tilted in the dirt with its distinctive wide bowl shape, and later, when I looked it up, that's how I became certain that the victim was female. For example, in women, the iliac crests are broader, flatter, and set further apart to facilitate childbirth. In males, they are typically higher, narrower, and have a much more pronounced S-shaped curve.
How do you know that? I wouldn't know that. Now we know. Big bone, long bone, female, I guess? I don't know. But it would heavily depend on like how fresh the cork, you found a human body in the middle of nowhere in the forest. But like how long ago was that though? Like how long ago was that? GG, I guess.
Now, the pelvis I saw in the dirt that day matched the exact description and was much wider than the male example I looked up afterwards. Now, the one thing you learn when studying forensics is that the details don't lie, and while I didn't glean these details my own self, I was told that the bones must have been there for at least 10 to 15 years. They had that dry, weathered look, and were cracked and almost gray from years of being exposed to the elements. There was obviously no tissue left, meaning that there were no bad smells except damp earth, and enough time had passed so that roots had grown through some of the ribs, which made for one heck of a chilling image, I can assure you. Small animals had gnawed on a few of the ends, but a couple had clearly been trapped down there after feeding, meaning a couple of the smaller animal skeletons were interspersed among the human ones.
What?
And as you can imagine, I didn't touch a thing. I just backed up, marked the spot on my GPS, and then hiked back to the tower as fast as I could call it in. The ranger who answered sounded skeptical at first, but when I described the skull, he got very serious then. They sent a team in 2 days after, and when I got the word, I hiked down to meet them at the trailhead before leading them to that pit. Now, I only stayed there for one visit. The crime scene was a few miles from my cabin, too far for me to check every day, and besides, they told me to stay clear while they worked. I watched from the edge as they took photos and measured stuff and sifted through the dirt for anything invisible to the naked eye. One of the state police guys was there in his marked jacket and crew cut, looking out of place among the rangers as they bagged everything carefully. I asked them to keep me updated, and although I kept doing my job as normal over the weeks that followed, my mind was never far from that pit. I pictured someone walking through these woods, maybe lost or hurt and never making it out. Or worse, someone bringing them there on purpose to ensure the final few moments of their life was as horrifying as it was lonely. And the broken femur stuck with me. That didn't happen from a fall, so whatever happened, it was no accident. It seemed to me to be deliberate. Now, a couple of weeks later, a ranger flew in with some supplies and sat me down at my little table in the cabin that I called home. He looked deeply uncomfortable as he told me that after finishing up the analysis of the bones, the lab had come back and said that there was nothing to be alarmed about because the bones were not human.
Huh?
When I was told that they belonged to a bear or maybe a big cat but not a person, I just stared at him in complete disbelief for a second. I just remember stammering out something like, but the skull, those teeth, they were human. And the pelvis, Tim, you can't tell me that it didn't belong to a person. But all he could do was shrug and explain that the professional over at the state lab saw things differently. He said that in some cases bones end up getting warped by prolonged exposure to the elements, in which case it was an easy mistake for me to make. But even with all the watertight excuses he'd been given, he still couldn't look me in the eyes for very long. The area was closed off for a week while they did.
They're covering up something. Yep. Yeah. Probably was a human. Who knows? I mean, yeah, sure, the experts say it wasn't, but how can you trust him? But then at the same time, how can you trust yourself too? You know? Because you didn't touch the bones. You only saw it from you only saw the bones, right? You didn't touch it. So how do you actually know you're right? You know? How do we know he's right? You know, who can we trust? Can we trust the toys? Can we trust the storyteller? Or can we trust the, you know, like, you don't know. It's hard to say. I mean, he said it was a human bone, but maybe the analysis was correct. You know, we don't know. It's hard to say who's in the wrong and who's in the right. I mean, you could make a bunch of theories, but what if it actually was just a bare bones and he's just tripping? You know? You know what I mean? You don't know. It just depends on you don't know. Different POVs, etc., etc. So it's pretty hard to really take a side here. You could say that, you know, they're covering it for a death, or you could say that he's actually just tripping and it actually was just bare bones. You know, we don't know. We don't know. Don't know. You don't know the trust. You know.
Their investigation.
But when it comes to the story, though, I must say he's just tripping for now. Because, like, I mean, he's saying that it looked like human bones, right? But the experts say that it's not human bones. So it's either we trust him or trust the researchers. The researchers could be covering up, or he's just tripping. You know, we don't know.
But after that, it was open to the public again. No more tape, no more forensics. It was wide open again like nothing had ever been found there. Now, I was just a lookout at the time, but I was still entitled to ask for a copy of the report. Yet before I could even file a request, I was told that the whole thing was being handled internally by the state police. I was told that I could talk to the lead state police investigator and that I could get all my answers from him. But the police voicemail I left was never returned, and it was around then that I started to sort of doubt myself a little. Time and time again, I was told that they weren't human remains and that I just simply made a mistake. But I knew what I saw. I'd spent 15 years in the woods, and in that time, I'd found dead deer, dead elk, and even a dead bear one time that had...
I mean, like I said, we don't know whose word to take. We could either say the entire police is trying to cover up for someone's death, or he's genuinely just tripping. You know? We don't know.
Been poached by a couple of heartless bastards, but not a single one of them looked like the skeleton in that pit. The skull had a suture line across the top, and it had human cheekbones, and the mastoid processes behind the ears indicated that it couldn't have even been a primate skeleton. It was as human gets, I think.
Let me guess. Some kind of crazy plot twist. It's not even like a... It's not even a human, it's a... I don't know, some kind of mythical... What they call it? Skinwalkers or something? Or like Bigfoot? Maybe it's Bigfoot. I don't know.
No, it wasn't some deformed bear. Bears don't have chins like that, and their skulls slope back, and while I tried at one point, I truly tried to let it go. At night, I'd pictured that broken femur or the way that the arm bones were splayed like the person had tried to protect themselves. And I knew something was deeply wrong with the state's approach to the investigation. I started writing letters first.
Bro's tripping out. It's not a big deal, is it? You've been doing it for like 15 years. I feel like, oh. Is that a dead body? Oh. Please deal with it. Not my problem. Here's what it is. They can cover up for death if they want. I don't care. I feel like for 15 years, he's tripping over this. I feel like he's tripping over this. I feel like it's like no big deal. Be like, oh yeah. Who was that? Like, okay, even if it was a dead body, how much would you care though? Like, even if it was like a human body. Oh. She died? Oh, okay. Alright, cool. Bet. Move on.
To the state police and then to my state representative. I kept them simple and factual, describing the location, the date, and what I observed. And I also mentioned the forensic details I remembered and asked them to reopen the investigation and have an independent lab look at the remains. One of the representatives actually wrote me back a polite letter saying that they'd look into it. But after that, nothing. They'd send me a bogus letter to shut me up for a while, then completely failed to act, but instead of giving up, I just wrote more. I contacted the other senator and then the governor's office and kept copies of everything in a folder. Some offices sent back letters while one staffer called me sounding interested. At least until I mentioned the state police had closed it, then the tone changed. It went from, oh, we'll do anything we can do to help out, to, actually, resources are kind of limited right now, especially with regards to a notoriously difficult wilderness investigation. Now, I was told to be patient, that good things came to those who waited, but by the end of the season, I was told the remains had been destroyed. That's standard procedure for animal bones, so cremating them didn't bat any eyelids up or down the chain. But that's just the thing. They weren't animal bones, yet they were destroyed all the same, like they never mattered to anyone, or whoever they did matter to had an interest in seeing them destroyed. Now that hit me harder than anything, because if they were just animal bones, why destroy them before anyone else could check? Why not let a university anthropologist have a look? I think I know why, but laying on my theories just makes me sound nuts. I finished that season, then came down the mountain a changed person. The next year they stationed me at a different tower, but I kept writing. I learned how the system works. You file public record requests and you talk to reporters if they'll listen. Now the ones I talked to responded like I was some kind of crazy lady, but I'm not crazy. I'm just someone...
Oh, it's a woman. That makes it even worse. Ma'am, you just tripping. Wait. But you just said you were Wait, what?
I talked and responded like I was some kind of crazy lady, but I'm not crazy. I'm just someone who saw something that didn't add up and couldn't let it rest. The state said animal, the bones to me said otherwise.
Wait, is this a woman's story or a man's story? Because at the beginning, the story writer said, at the beginning of the story writer said that they broke up with their ex bitch, and bitch is for females. Is this a lesbian?
And the fact they destroyed the evidence makes my skin crawl even today. I still scan the ridges in my mind sometimes, even though I'm retired now. I still write the occasional letter when a new representative gets elected. Most people think I'm chasing ghosts, and maybe I am, but I stood over that pit and looked into the empty eye sockets that once held a person's eyes, and I made a promise to try and get to the bottom of it. Everyone knows that the woods have their secrets. I just didn't know that sometimes the people who are supposed to protect us help those secrets stay buried.
That's the Matrix for you.
The system moved on, but
This
I
is how it
remember.
works.
Every quiet night in my cabin, I remember the bones.
Yeah, that's just how it is. That story is just, you gotta accept it. It's like, it is what it is. What can you do about it? You know? It is what it is. They can make it disappear. They can make you reappear. They can do whatever they want. It is what it is. You know? That's a pretty interesting story in the end. It does actually teach you the it is what it is moment. You know, sure, they could cover up, you know? Again, it could really depend, because like if they really wanted to cover it up, that would make you disappear too. Like, this person witnessed it, gone. And like if you keep peer pressuring them saying, hey, what happened to the body? What happened to the body? You're gonna disappear too one day too. You gone. You're gonna get hit by a car or something, or matter of fact, if you were still working in the woods, you might just disappear. You would be dead. And then they'll say, oh, you know that park ranger that found that dead body? Yeah, she died to a bear. RIP is what it is. And then the other person's gonna be like, oh, they died to a bear. Anyways, what's the other employee we can get out there? Because you're just a pawn in the game. It is what it is. That's just how it works. That is just how it works. We've been on this like video for like days now. What is there any new go-to ones? There's already been 21 minutes. Oh, skinwalker encounters. Those are pretty interesting. Not like they're real or anything. Just get like a video camera out. I bet Mr. Nightmare's got some go-to ones. Oh, boating stories. But it's already been 22 minutes and I really want to stream. Alright, see you guys next time. Peace out.